Hey everyone, Red here, and it's time for another Rank 1 Mindset. And today we're featuring one of my favorite killers, Sadako. Overall, for the build and the playstyle today, I will be doing my perma-pressure Sadako, which does involve a lot of slugging, a lot of survivors on the ground, so keep that in mind as we move forward. If you're not a fan of slugging, this one might not just be for you. Or you can tell me how much you hate it down in the comment section below. But let's go ahead and break down today's build. For our first perk, we have Infectious Fright. Whenever a survivor is put into the dying state, all survivors within my terror radius are going to scream, revealing their location. If you want a substitute perk for this spot, Corrupt Intervention is best in slot here in my opinion. Next we have Bamboozle. I will be able to vault 15% faster, and I will then block that vault with the entity for 16 seconds. This is very useful when it comes down to killers who don't have much chase potential, such as Sadako, as it does allow them to shut down some of the stronger loops in the game. Of course, next we have Jolt. Putting a survivor into the dying state with a basic attack will cause all generators within 32-meter radius to instantly explode and begin regressing. Generators affected by Jolt will immediately lose 8% of their progress. Jolt is an amazing perk when it comes down to slug playstyle, as we're able to keep so much efficiency on everything else in the game that Jolt will slowly build up more and more value as the game goes on. And for our last perk is one of my favorite perks, of course, and that is Save the Best for Last. Whenever you hit a non-obsession survivor, gain a token. Whenever you hit the obsession, lose 2 tokens. And every token is going to grant you a stackable 5% decrease on successful basic attack cooldown. Now you can only earn up to a max of 8 tokens for a total of 40% decreased cooldown. As far as add-ons today, we're bringing my favorites, which is going to be Iridescent Videotape. Hitting a survivor within 8 seconds after manifesting turns on the last 4 TVs that were turned off by projection. And of course, the thing that makes this slug build really viable is ring drawing. Condemn survivors spread Condemn to other survivors who are completing a healing action on them. Remember, whenever you are slugged, being picked up does count as a healing action, so you can very quickly ramp up the Condemn, and overall is one of the add-ons that I think should be more base kit, as it would help her build up a lot more pressure naturally, even outside of a slug build. But that is today's build. Now let's go ahead and break down one of my games as Sadako, and hopefully you all can learn something. If you are a Sadako main yourself and you think that I've missed something, or you just want to give a tip out there to maybe some newer Sadako mains, definitely leave that in the comment section below. Much love, everybody. Now let's go ahead and break down our game. Rancid Abattoir. This map in particular can be very brutal towards basic attack killers like Sadako because of all the safe pallets and the triple threat of buildings such as Cattle Tree, Main Building, and the Killer Shack. These are all things you have to watch out for whenever playing basic attack killers, because you can waste a lot of time at any one of those locations. Getting pallets early is very essential when you're playing a hit and run killer or trying to play on this map in general, as you want to remove a lot of these resources from the survivors. That way towards mid game we have a much stronger game for ourselves. Do keep in mind, whenever you do break a pallet from a chase, you need to think to yourself whether or not you should be continuing the chase or whether or not you should give the chase up and go pressure elsewhere. Especially with a killer like Sadako, who can get around the map very well. An important part, at least with this build in particular, is that we do want to get Condemn going, especially if we can get Condemn on a person that we look to slug. That way we can spread that Condemn out with ring drawing add-on. I didn't want to go ahead and get back into this chase, but it just happened to be the one we ran into, and I did check the surrounding gens. Since no one's really on this side, I don't want to spend time over at Cattle Tree. So removing more resources from this side of the map, at most likely a cost of another generator, does not bother me. If it was a different map with a different area, I might do more hit and run, but in this case, it's just not the right call. Again, with this build, we're looking to slug, and with this teleport, we actually managed to tag all 3 survivors, so we have information on everybody, which is massive. Bill can drop this pallet simply because he thinks that he's moving away to the other side, and we're going to go ahead and ignore Kate here because we're not going to go and chase that Cattle Tree now. We just get no value from that chase. Because this pallet's already down, we can go ahead and try to play at Shack. Shack is still very strong, especially with current Dead Hard. As you can see, this Dead Hard here actually buys Bill just enough time to not go down as well. If we did manage to get him there though, this would have been a very solid start for us. We don't ever want to commit to one chase for too long, especially when we do have a slug out. Survivors are going to try and make their way over here. And again, we don't need to break away from these generators that we currently have. Bill has recently healed himself, so he's probably going to be heading back this way, because in the direction that he ran from originally was right here. We do manage to hear someone on the generator, which is good. We can definitely play a little bit of hit and run. This gen isn't a priority, and neither is Michaela, since she is my obsession. But if she does give me the ability to down her, I will take it gladly and leave her slugged on the ground. This build really focuses survivors to keep up on their Condemn, because it's very easy for them to heal each other up, especially from the slugging, and be moreable. We don't really need to pay too much attention to the hooks in this area. It's more about just the amount of pressure that we can keep. Bill holding forward here means we're going to be able to secure the down, and we do have Jolt to pressure out with it, and we're able to see Kate here as well. We can follow her up, and this is where you can take two choices. I decided to go for the Meg, of course, because I want to spread everybody out. I want everyone to be injured if possible, and I just want to play around with that. But I will say the mistake here is not committing. So one thing you might want to do in that area is, because it is a corner of the map, I definitely could have committed to the Meg there and pressured that out more. My thought for this moment was, as soon as I went over here, I might be able to capitalize on the Kate, who came back for the save on Bill. Unfortunately, Kate had no intention of doing that. So we end up wasting a little more time here than we should have. You should always try to be active, especially with a slug intense build, because the slug is your pressure, much like a hooked survivor would be. It does pull survivors away. We do happen to get Kate here with the Condemn, so we know she's in the area. She decides she's going to camp a pallet, so we play the 50-50 game. Since we win those, we can of course pick up Kate here, because again, Survivor Meg healed herself, Bill was picked up by Michaela, and that means we have information on everybody, nobody on a generator. It gives us time to hook somebody. And for this build specifically, Kate's going to be our primary focus of hooking survivors, whereas we look to slug everybody else. Now, if you're playing a non-slug build like this, you still want to incorporate some slugging if possible. Seeing Bill was willing to go down to remove his VHS tape here means he must have a very high or almost max Condemn. So instead of slugging, we want to break that rule and we want to try and take him away so we can make a play later at this VCR with a teleport and maybe a Condemn kill. Getting the grab here was actually really unfortunate. I would have much preferred to actually down her with a basic attack. That way we could have proc Jolt, and we could have gotten iridescent videotape to activate the VCR that he was going to be going at. Unfortunately, since we weren't able to do that, Bill's going to be able to remove that VCR, and with DS probably still in play, we're going to have to slug him out instead. Kate is definitely the target because we are hooking Kate, and we have, guess what, another survivor who's down that is pulling pressure, and Michaela ran off to the right. With Infectious though, we did see that she made her way back over to the generator. And remember, whenever you are running ring drawing, a survivor who heals another survivor is going to get a stack of Condemn if that survivor is condemned. And that means also any healing action, such as picking them up off the ground. So if you do happen to pick someone off the ground and heal them all the way to full health, you'll actually get 2 stacks of Condemn. It's very brutal. You can take the time to kick gens. Unfortunately here I just didn't notice the Meg, so we weren't able to play around with that as well. I would rather hit the Meg and try to get her into that corner. We can still play around with it. I got plenty of pallets I need to chew through, and she likes to drop them fast. You will notice that throughout this match, I really didn't use my power to try and mind game at loops. The only loops I would personally want to try and use my power would actually be short loops. Otherwise, it's often best just to try and bulldoze your way to eat up the pallet so you can come back here later. Sadako excels at getting that first hit and catching survivors off guard, but she does not excel in chase. That's why we give her things to help her out in chase, and that's why we remove resources as best as we can from a game. It's all to try and make future chases easier. Joel is your lifesaver here, even more so when it gets buffed in the future, as it will no longer have a cooldown. This is where the chain reaction can start to happen with this type of build. Because we have the information now, we're affecting 3 survivors. Bill's going for the save, Kate might be trying to get rid of her tape as the icon shown on the left, and of course we have Michaela down as well. Save the best for last stops Bill from actually being able to get this, which is really solid. Save the best for last is probably one of the best perks for Sadako if you're playing a slug heavy build like this. It can also deny a survivor from being able to put a VHS tape in right in front of your face. We do leave Bill on the ground. You could opt to hook Bill as well, but Bill is halfway on his meter, and I really do want to try and get people to heal him up to get more condemn value. Remember, Sadako is visible when within 24 meters, so use obstacles to block line of sight. Joel, again, value. You can see that generator right there, just chunked in value. We have time now. If you want, and I chose to do this personally, was to eat the DS. If you have the time, yeah, go ahead and get it out of the way if you feel like it's appropriate. Here I did, just in case later on it gets a little closer, as we did lose a little bit more in the early game than I would have liked. A missed projection here is fine. We're going to go ahead and try and turn it around. I was going to see if she would maybe continue the loop and come outside, but it looks like she went over there and healed Bill instead. Instead of teleporting, we're just going to walk at it because they're going to try and get away from that teleport. Kate makes a mistake here, ends up going for the dead hard, and we block it off, along with now getting rid of our first survivor out of the game. And you can see really quickly here just how the pressure can catch up to survivors. When you think about hooking a survivor, you gotta keep in mind that as far as efficiency goes, if you go from one survivor to another and down them and hook them, every time you actually go to hook them, you waste about 15 seconds in actually hooking them. As far as the animation goes for picking up, animation for hooking, and the carry time over to a hook. As far as needing to slug as much as we do in this game, no, that's not always necessary. It's just kind of what this build is for. But it's something as a Sadako player you should definitely keep in mind, that slugging is going to be pretty helpful, especially when you start going against some of the better teams in Dead by Daylight. And it'll catch them off guard too. Bill's a little nervous here. He is pre-dropping. He's definitely getting closer to death. Even though he doesn't have any hook states, he is about halfway on as far as being bled out. And that's another thing that you will get kills from when you are playing this type of build and this play style. We are going to chase Bill here because I do notice that the other 2 survivors healed. So we have about, well, I would say about 15 to 20 seconds of playtime where I can use this time to get rid of another resource on the map. We know he's going to be dead hard. He's going to get to the pallet. I'm going to swing and always try and get that little snag there if I can. And my interest in the chase is completely lost because of the direction he went. He went towards main building, which has a solid loop. And again, we got rid of the resource we want. That way, if he feels like he can go to Cow Tree later, we can just follow him up and there'll be no issue. You can really look at just how much of a dead zone this map has become because of our early game. And a lot of this does also come from Meg throwing pallets a little too early. If you're playing against this build, you do want to play conservative. When you are playing with this build specifically, don't worry about save the best for last stacks. They will come and go. Worry more about the pressure you're keeping up. It's fine, like I said, don't ever be worried to not eat a pallet. Most survivors are going to drop them pretty quick or try and get the stun on you. It's really not that big of a deal. it's more important to remove that resource. Unless it's a pallet you can play around. We definitely have time to go over here and look for the Michaela. Definitely to hit her. We're also trying to listen and see where Bill's at. And because she ran towards mid, we can always keep in mind of all the generators that are being worked on now. Bill's here. He has a strong window, but we can shut it down with Bamboozle, and that's why we have Bamboozle in this build. It's to shut down very strong loops and to get rid of pallets quicker, because again, if you happen to shut down a vault and the survivor's about ready to go down, they're going to drop that pallet. And that's the whole point of playing a macro intensive killer or a slug play style as well. The one survivor did DC. It would not have changed the outcome of this game. With the slug play style that I do have for Sadako, you're gonna get quite a few DCs. A lot of survivors don't like it, but it is very effective. We're definitely taking a look now to see if we can maybe find the Michaela. Overall though, I probably should have just hooked Bill and called it good. I don't normally like to go and look for the 4K. My current thought there was it'd be faster for him to bleed out while we look for the Michaela. It wasn't the, 100% the right call. It'd be quicker just to move on to the next match. Now, one thing you might be asking is, why aren't the gens going by, etc., quick? One thing to keep in mind is that the Condemn, even though you don't always notice the amount of slowdown it can create, it is massive, especially with ring drawing and a slugging build. No survivor really wants to be in the area of being killed due to Condemn and throwing the whole game for their team, so they do watch it. As you can see, Michaela here had 6 stacks before she actually healed up Bill, and now she's in lethal. And we know a while ago Bill was also very close to lethal because he was willing to go down to actually remove the Condemn from himself. Again, there's no real point in picking up Bill here, especially with Michaela already being in our sights with Infectious Fright. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of hold forward on the Michaela, and Bill will bleed out. It is unfortunate. I know survivors don't like being bled out, but there are a lot of chases. It gives, there's equal opportunity for both sides here. And we're not just leaving people to bleed out just because. If I had everyone slugged down right now, I would be hooking survivors. And of course, we get to end the game with a perfect Mori from our Condemn kill. Overall, I hope this helps you think a little bit about how you're playing Sadako. Use some of these tips and some of these thoughts in your games. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Much love, everyone, and until next time, I'm Red, and I'm signing off.
Aren't you just gonna take that? Or will you fucking fight back?